Hi everybody, it's Kristen Barton coming to you from wonderful Paganistan, which is the Minneapolis-St. Paul area of Minnesota. And I am kind of starting a series of videos, which has been a long time coming. Now, there is no lack of people who are doing videos on Wicca on YouTube, clearly. But there is a little bit of a lack of the representation of third degree traditional high priests and high priestesses on YouTube. It's not that what traditional Wicca teaches is more right than eclectic Wicca in any way, but I would like beginners and seekers to have a full range of people that they can listen to and talk to about the craft, because it's such a huge subject. And a lot of times we see eclectic Wicca represented heavily, and in some cases very irresponsibly. And we don't see a lot of traditional Wicca teachers on here, primarily because they don't have the time, because they're busy running covens and having jobs and doing all the things that we do. And when I was running my coven for over 7 years, I didn't have the time to do this either. So as I'm kind of going toward my retirement and have trained up students to take my place in my tradition, my husband and I are kind of stepping back and becoming elders in our tradition a little bit more. And we now have a little bit of time so that I can actually do some of the things that I've always wanted to do. And one of them is to kind of create some YouTube videos. I want it stated that I don't think that traditional Wicca is the end-all and be-all of rightness in the craft. Excuse me. But I think that it's very important for seekers and students to understand what all of their educational options are so that they can make educated choices about how they do their study. And a lot of times what ends up happening is people are given very incorrect, I mean, I'm talking incorrect ideas about what traditional Wicca is. And you can't reject something if you can't define it, if you don't know what it is. So reject away. Certainly, if you don't want a traditional education, don't want to be initiated or what have you, but understand what it is you are rejecting. So that's one of the reasons that I wanted to create these videos, is to help people have some real working vocabulary and definitions that are sometimes kind of twisted in the general, craft community, particularly with some books that are out there. Okay, so some things about me. I'm obviously very opinionated. One doesn't usually get through the 3 degrees in traditional Wicca without having some strong opinions or developing some strong opinions. I'm a person who tends to speak out about subjects that other people might not be comfortable talking about. I phrase myself strongly. I cuss. I swear, I use the F word. I unapologetically use those words. I've been a professional writer since 2002, and I do not believe that using colorful speech makes a person look stupid. As a matter of fact, I believe that it is our right to use the full range of languages that is available to us and to speak strongly if we are guided to do so. Some things about me that you will learn is that I have an unusual life story. I am a trauma survivor. As a matter of fact, I'm not just a trauma survivor, I'm a torture survivor by wartime standards. I have permanent physical injuries and have been treated throughout my life with mercifully well-managed now PTSD and some other things. And using the framework of the 3 degrees of traditional Wicca actually helped me heal tremendously. It wasn't the only thing that helped me heal, but I will be talking a little bit about that as well. But having lived through some of the things I've lived through means that I'm not afraid of much. As a matter of fact, I can't think of anything I'm afraid of, actually. Death included, like, it just doesn't scare me. So because of that, I'm not afraid of social stigma. I'm not afraid of saying things that I feel need to be said. So I will be that person. And some people won't like that. That's okay. That's the beauty of having the freedom to vote with your feet. You don't have to listen to what I have to say. But I think that it's very important for people like me to speak out. I think it's important for everybody to speak out. Some things that have happened in the craft, in the short history of the craft, which, modern Wicca really comes from early to mid 20th century. It was created by an ethnocentric, white, privileged male guy who was very representative of his time and had really, I think, great intentions. I mean, he was a weird duck, but I think all witches are weird, so, all hail the weirdos. Uncle Jerry is a really cool, unique part of our history, and I think his writings are significant. But he does not now represent what the craft is because, of course, the craft was created to grow and change. So we have this modern iteration of paganism that was, originated in Europe and has definitely some ancient roots, but isn't in and of itself in its form that we have now ancient. It's modern. And then we have, Uncle Bucky, Raymond Buckland, bless his recently departed soul, who brought Wicca across the pond to the U.S. And gave us that here in the United States. And he's a person about whom I have strong opinions as well. And that may or may not excite some people. But anyway, so we have this situation where we have this newish religion that worships ancient gods and has some ancient things that are a part of it, but also incorporates a lot of modern or more recent elements. And it has gone, through various stages where it was called witchcraft in general, or it was called the religion of witches, then it was called Wicca, and now it's called any number of things. And some of those definitions get really confused. And so one of the things that I want to do for people is I want to kind of help with some of those definitions, because what we have is this kind of goose soup and all these different books, some of which are really irresponsibly written and really irresponsibly published, which doesn't make me super popular either, to say that, but it's really true. We have this whole thing. So new people come in to the craft and they're like, I really want to learn, and I want to learn about all the things and Wicca and witchcraft. And so they pick up all these books, and it's very hit or miss as to whether they get a good book or a responsible book versus a book written by somebody who, has no reason or right to write about the subject because they're beginners themselves. And then we have, YouTube videos of people who have various levels of education on the subject that they purport to teach. So none of that's bad, but it's confusing. It's confusing for new people. So I want to talk a little bit about definitions going forward, and I'm also going to talk about some hard subjects such as abuse in the craft community, which has been a recent subject that we've become unable to ignore and which should not be ignored. And ethics, power dynamics, all of those kind of intertwine. They're all related. And they all need to be talked about constantly, in my opinion. It's not, we don't talk about ethics and then go, well, we did that. Ethics have to be talked about ad nauseum. Consent culture has to be talked about ad nauseum, particularly because the craft purports to be sex positive, which is great, awesome, sex positivity, yes, all the yes, but then we end up with a hornet's nest, right? Because that has many things that go along with it that we have to talk about. So those are some of the subjects, and that is the way in which you're going to receive them from me. You're going to get some blunt stuff. You're going to get some snarky stuff. You're going to get me talking about some things that will really piss some people off. And I, you know, still want to do it, even if it's going to upset some folks, because I believe that my message is important. So some of the definitions. Okay, one of the things that I've noticed going forward, and I've had to kind of rewrite these emails over and over because I get asked a lot of questions online, and it's a lot of the same questions. So one of the things that comes up is defining, like, for instance, the read. Okay, so a lot of newbies who think they're teachers will show up on YouTube in their little black outfits, and I'm wearing a black outfit right now, but you know, I mean, they're very conscious of the fashion statement that they may think has to do with the craft, which doesn't. And they're like, okay, we're all going to learn about the read. The read is the only law in Wicca. No, the read isn't a law, first of all. The read, which is "and it harm none, do as you will," is a phrase from a long poem by either Adriana Porter or Gwen Thompson from the mid-20th century called The Read of the Wicca. And the actual read is 8 words, "and it harm none, do as you will." And it is advice. The read actually means advice. This has actually been disseminated throughout craft culture, finally, which is great. You know, it's like, hey, it's not a law, it's advice. That's what read means. But we need to understand that we don't quote things unless we know where they come from. Like, Wicca is not this ancient mists of time thing that, oh, the read is this, you know, ancient. It's not bloody ancient. Guys, it came from like the 1940s. Okay. Sorry, that was not good language. I will try to police my language to be inclusive of differently gendered folks. So I apologize. I will try not to refer to people as guys, because that can be triggering to some of our LGBT family. So please excuse me for that. I'm a work in progress. So the read, like I say, is simply advice, but it also has different meanings. It does not only mean, if it doesn't harm anybody, go ahead. It can mean many different things. It can mean, if it harm none, align your will to your actions. Do as you will, which is an entirely different thing. And is closer to some of the old ceremonial magic Crowley type stuff. But at any rate, if you're going to run around quoting the read, understand, first of all, it is not a law, it is not a rule, it has never been that. Stop saying that. It is, in fact, advice that comes from a poem from the 1940s. That's all. When I have classes with new seekers, first thing I do is that, we sit in a circle and we're going to ground and center, right? And everybody knows what ground and center means. And we're all going to, okay, we're going to take these deep breaths and we're going to ground and we're going to center. And I have my students take these deep breaths. And then I say to them, you just killed billions of microorganisms with that breath. Tell me again how you harm none. You cannot harm none. Merely living harms many, many, many creatures all around you. You step on ants, even if you don't know you're stepping on ants. You eat living things, whether or not you're a vegan or a vegetarian, you're still eating something living. You cannot harm none, so stop talking about it like it's something you can do. You can't do it. And people who say there's only one law in Wicca are showing their ignorance. There are many, many, many rules in Wicca. Many rules. Okay. Whether or not you choose to follow them, that's up to you. But there are many rules, and that depends on which tradition you're practicing and all sorts of different things. We'll talk about what traditions are. They're basically akin to denominations. But at any rate, so the read, your first lesson to take away is that the read is not ancient. It comes from a 1940s poem from either Adriana Porter or her granddaughter Gwen Thompson, who was very instrumental early founding mother of modern craft in the US on the East Coast. And it isn't a law. And in traditional Wicca, we don't have this thing that you can't harm. You can harm, you can magically harm, but you better be willing to take the consequences. Okay, so then we have, that brings me to something else. The rule of three, the threefold return. Oy. Okay, guys, again, I did it again. People. The threefold return is not universal. It has never been universal. The threefold return comes from something that was leaked from the second degree liturgy, which I'm not going to go into because it's oath-bound. But I will tell you that of the 3 degrees, the 3 initiatory degrees of traditional Wicca, in the second degree elevation, there is a magical act that occurs that amplifies the doings of the postulant 3 times. It is a magical contract. If you have not undergone the second degree elevation, you do not have the threefold return. Period. The end. Now, this was leaked early on, which can happen in oath-bound, mystery traditions, right? We're talking about stuff and then we realize person over in the corner is actually not a second degree. We were talking about the second degree stuff. Oh, what are we going to do now? Oh, that's a threefold return. Yeah, 3 times what happens, it comes back. It's a thing. The toothpaste out of the tube, right? So basically, here's the thing. It is magically useful to amplify our doings 3 times, but it is also, in the second degree elevation, a threat. It is a threat against the person who's being given the elevation, saying, if you handle this irresponsibly, guess what? 3 times what you have done will come back on your head. It is a threat. It is meant to be a threat. It should be a threat. People getting that level of knowledge should be threatened. Don't give this away. Don't disrespect what we're giving you, okay? So, the threefold return, don't treat it like it's this universal thing. This is something, did Scott Cunningham, is this one of the things Scott messed up? I'm trying to think. I think it was. I think Scott just referred in general to the threefold return because Scott Cunningham was a first degree writing in a 3 degree system for most of the books that he wrote. And I don't mean to diss Scott. Scott's amazing. Scott died young. He wrote. He had a lot of really great knowledge. He was not a 3rd degree and shouldn't have been teaching those things. I think he actually tried not to teach things unethically. I just think that he was working from where he was working as a 1st degree and he didn't know what he didn't know. So he would refer to the threefold return. So now we have 2 generations of, eclectics going around going, threefold return. No, it's not what it is. Okay. So, is it good to act like whatever you do comes back to you 3 times? Yeah, use that. Absolutely. Be like, would I want 3 times this to come back to me? If the answer is no, you probably shouldn't do it. So that's all good, but understand that it came from a leak of 2nd degree liturgy. It is a binding contract that happens within that ritual only. If you have not undergone that ritual, you don't have it. Calm down about it. We have people who are new, who step on a bug and go, oh my God, 3 times this thing is going to happen to me now. They're all like, oh, threefold return, calculator in the sky, right? No, it's not a calculator in the sky. It's not a universal rule. Witches do not have different rules that apply to them. We actually had tape of Doreen Valiente, bless her, wonderful mother of the craft, commenting on the threefold return, and she would say things like, well, I think Gerald made it up, and, that's likely. But it was magically incorporated into the rituals, so it becomes a binding contract, because what you do in sacred space in a magical circle becomes reality, right? That's the whole idea of magic. So what we do in sacred space actually becomes binding. So it was then, made into a thing. But So I guess it could, be argued that if you really, really, truly believe that what you do comes back to you 3 times and you've referred to that in sacred space, maybe you have activated that contract. Maybe that's true. But understand that where it came from is that it was a leak. It wasn't supposed to be leaked. It was leaked. And then it became a thing. Okay. Also, in alignment with that, blessed be, another thing that was kind of leaked and has now become a generalized greeting. It was never a generalized greeting. Blessed be refers to the fivefold kiss, which is done in the first degree initiation. It was leaked long before I made this video. You can read about it all you want online in books. But here's the thing. Unless and until you have been a proper person, properly prepared, who has undergone the actual initiation ritual, you're never going to fully understand what is in that ritual. You can read that ritual up one side, down the other. You can try to follow it. You can perform it. You can self-initiate. You can try to initiate others, even though you don't have the right to do that, unless you were given it legitimately. But here's the thing. Until you have been a proper person, properly prepared, who has undergone the ritual, you will never understand the ritual, even if you have every single syllable and word of the ritual. That's why it's a mystery tradition, okay? So the fivefold kiss has been leaked, and blessed be refers to the liturgy that goes along with the fivefold kiss, which is, blessed be your feet that have brought you in these ways. Blessed be your knees that will kneel at the sacred altar, etc., right? You still don't have that until you have it. So those of us who are initiated are not going to say blessed be. I will never say blessed be to you unless I'm in a circle with you and you are an initiate. So you can use that all you want. You can say blessed be, blessed be, blessed be. Great. The toothpaste is out of the tube. But just know that's not what it means. And you won't have the meaning until you have the meaning. So yes, it's a beautiful thing to say, and it's not wrong. And I'm not going to correct you if you come up to me at a fest and go, hey, blessed be. I'm not going to be like, that's wrong. You didn't say that, blah. But it doesn't make you look super educated either. I know I'm being a jerk, but just be aware of it. If you're saying it, be aware that it comes from something else, and it's not a general saying, or wasn't in its original form. It's been used so much now that it kind of has become part of the vernacular, and now we say it, So I'm not going to correct people in person on that or, be a jerk about it, but I'm going to tell you the history of where it comes from. So there's a lot of stuff that has kind of originated from traditional Wicca that has all these specific meanings that have then, been kind of outed, and now it becomes this other thing. And that's something that seekers should know. And there's a whole lot of stuff that is told to people that while it may not actually be untrue completely, it may be a partial truth. And I think that you deserve to know that as well. So we'll talk more about definitions and what's what and why I think some books are horrible. Everybody has opinions about books, okay, and I'm no different. But the Wicca I know is not taught through books, period. It is taught by teachers who have the 3 degrees. That is how you get Wicca. That is how you get the Wicca I know, okay? It doesn't mean you shouldn't read books. It doesn't mean you shouldn't read all the books. It doesn't mean you shouldn't read bad books, good books, whatever. Read them all. Have opinions, talk about them. Do not confuse them with instruction. Books are not instruction. Furthermore, when you say, I don't want a teacher, I want to read books. Okay, well, books were written by somebody. So that's your teacher. The author is your teacher if you are reading the book for instruction. So this idea of, well, don't tell me anything because I'm independent, I read books. Yo, the books are written by people. Rocket science. Yeah. Okay, so back to my center. We'll talk about things going forward, okay, about the parts of, what makes Wicca be Wicca, as opposed to generalized paganism. What are the parts of Wiccan ritual? What about the gods? These are things that are kind of talked about by other people, but they're not necessarily always going to be people with a 3 degree traditional background. So I'm going to tell you from my perspective what I think, and I'm also going to try as much as I can to identify my biases. And if I don't, you know, you can call me on it and I'll discuss it with you. But anyway, so that's all for now. This is my first video. I hope you'll continue to watch. We'll talk about all sorts of stuff and things about magic and the craft and spellcraft and initiations and circles and history and all that stuff. Okay, so I'm not going to say blessed be. I'm going to say blessings. So blessings to all of you. And I look forward to seeing you again. Thanks a lot. Bye now.